Hi and welcome. So now we are going to see about buffered writer. Okay, we have seen file writer, and the issue with file writer was it used specifically /n, and /n may not work for all the systems or for all the, you can even say, the IDEs. Fine. So buffered writer tackled this issue. What it did was it provided a function itself. So it provided new line. Fine. New line function. Whenever you want to insert a new line, just call the new line function. That's it. Fine. What are the other things in buffered writer? What are its constructors? What are its methods? Let's see that. One important point in buffered writer is when we were using file writer, the file writer can directly communicate with the file. Correct? We simply used file writer equals to fw equals to new file writer, and we pass the file here. Fine. It can directly communicate with the file, but buffered writer cannot directly communicate with the file. You just cannot write buffered writer bw equals to new buffered writer and the file. This is wrong. This is not correct. Buffered writer cannot directly communicate with the file. Buffered writer needs a writer object beforehand that is communicating with the file. Okay, so it can indirectly communicate with the file. So what I'm saying is, let's have a file writer or a print writer object, anything, fw. Now using this, the buffered writer can communicate with the file. So it communicates with the file using a writer object. Fine. So accordingly, what are its constructors? The constructors are buffered writer bw equals to new buffered writer, and here we will pass some writer object. Fine, any writer object. It can be file writer or it can also be print writer, which we will see afterwards. Fine. Next is buffered writer bw equals to new buffered writer. We will pass the writer object. Also, we can specify in buffered writer just an extra functionality that what will be the buffer size. Fine. I told you once, whenever we are writing into a file, okay, so first that data is stored in some kind of buffer memory. Okay, and from this buffer memory it is given to the file. Fine. It is same for input and output. Buffer is used in middle. Fine. So we can specify that buffer size when we are using buffered writer. So afterwards, after these two constructors, I told you that we cannot use directly the files. So if I write something like this, that is buffered writer bw equals to new buffered writer, and here I pass the file name, file path. This is absolutely wrong. Fine. What we have to actually do here is, we have to actually, let's say we have a file writer. Fine, we can write a file writer here, and in the file writer we can pass the path as we usually do. This is correct. This is also correct. If I write buffered writer bw equals to new buffered writer, and I write here new buffered writer, fine, and inside new file writer. This is also correct. It is simply two-level buffering. So it is like this. We have a file writer which is communicating directly with the file, a buffer writer communicating with the file writer, and a buffer writer communicating with both buffer writers and file writers. Fine. So this we can do, but we cannot directly communicate with the file using buffered writer. Okay. Next things are the methods, which are almost exactly the same as the methods we have seen in our file writer. Correct. So we have the write method, which will take character as the input. Okay, so you can give its Unicode value, and you can also give its as a character directly. Then we can write a character array into it. We can write a string into it. Fine. We can flush. We have seen this also. We can close. We have seen this also. And only extra method that we are having is new line. Whenever we need a new line, we will call the new line method. Okay, to insert a line separator. So this is given by Java, so it is supported in everything. Now, since we are just not opening BufferedWriter, we are also opening a Filewriter for this. Fine. So when we close, which one should we close? Means should we write fw.close, then bw.close? Yes, this will also work. But you can just directly write bw.close. Fine. BufferedWriter object.close, and it will automatically close the Filewriter object also. Fine, because it is nested into it, so it will automatically close it. Okay, so this is just for the closing part. So these are the functions which we have already seen, and these are the new constructors. Just remember that BufferedWriter cannot directly communicate with the file. Fine, rest everything is fine in the BufferedWriter. Only new thing is the new line function that it is providing us. Fine. So let's see this in action in the code. Fine. So let's see the code for BufferedWriter. Fine. So it is BufferedWriter. We have already created a Filewriter object. Fine. So it is pointing to this particular file. If the file does not exist, it will simply create it. Okay. So BufferedWriter BW equals to new BufferedWriter, and we simply pass here now the Filewriter object. Okay. Now we write BufferedWriter.write, and let's say we give 120 as a Unicode value. It will be converted into character, then a new line. So bw.newline. Then we can also write a character bw.write. Let's say a. Fine. For a new line, bw.newline. Then we write bw.write. Fine. We are learning file handling. So string, now we have written the characters. So bw.newline. And finally, let's write a character array. Character array equals to, we have here x, y, and z. Fine. And we do bw.write, and we pass the character array. Finally, first we flush before closing, so that if any data, any character is not completely written, it will be completely written and the buffer will be cleaned. Then bw.close. Okay. So this is where I will create it. So let's run it. Let's just see it. So I've run it. So let's see now. Yeah, BufferedWriter is created, and if we just open it, you can see that 120 is x, a is written, and whatever we have written, it is perfectly written here. Fine. So this was all about BufferedWriter. Next, we are going to see about BufferedReader. Okay. Thank you.